Yeah, sorry. So the way that I usually do sessions is before we all come on a call, I usually put it to a vote. What section someone would like to discuss on that particular day, say it's RC, CR, or GK, we take it up and we talk about not just strategy. I think strategy is the most important part of our preparation, but we generally talk about how exactly, even if there are any substantive doubts. So there are two types of sessions that usually I hold. One is a strategic session in which my main role is basically to listen to you guys, to see what you guys have to say, and then accordingly respond with the you know ways you can approach the paper strategically. Or if you guys have doubts, we have usually a session on Gmeet on which I present screen and I solve questions side by side with you. So both of us are solving questions live, and you can go through my thought process and I can go through yours. So that's some way that you can directly get a hand to hand, hands on learning about how exactly do you approach a CR question? How exactly do you approach an ask question? Because a lot of times, particularly in verbals, many students have doubts with regards to how do they even begin reading it? How do they even approach a section? Which passage do they start? So, what my role is basically not just to tell you about strategy, about how you approach a particular session, but my role is also to guide you through the logic of any particular question. So, anytime you have a doubt, all you do is drop me a text, all you do is tell me in the session, and I can clear it right there and then. So, today, I think what will take up our agenda for this mentorship session will be mock analysis. See, I think mock analysis is a very underrated part of our preparation. The reason I think so is there's not a lot of coaching institutes out there. Say, even if you join other coaching institutes, they're not going to specifically teach you how do you analyze a mock. They're going to create a mock, they're going to give you a mock, and they're going to tell you to write it. And whether or not you get a good score, great. And that's it, you're done. So, generally, what most students do, and I've done this before as well, is that they'll go through the wrong questions of the mock and say, "Theek hai, arey yaar, this question is wrong," and then they'll just move on. But that's not the way that mock analysis is effectively done. I say this because I know for a fact that there is indeed a formula to crack CLAT. When I prepared for CLAT, I had a study group. There were four of us, and all of us followed the exact same methods, and all four of us are in NLSIU. So that tells you something. That tells you that the certain method that we followed, the certain formula that we used in our strategy, it really it really does produce results. That's what I'm trying to tell you here today. And I think the most important part of that was our mock analysis. So generally, when you're starting out, I recommend you take about two mocks a week if you can. From two mocks a week if you can. You can look into NLTI's mock test series as well. In my experience, a lot of the students I mentored, they had quite a few problems, particularly in legal with the other coaching institutes, but NLTI's legal didn't give them as many problems. So I think you can look into NLTI's mock test series, or the material can be discussed later. But the point is, when you're doing mock analysis, there's a certain way you go about it. And throughout the session, I'll tell you how exactly you go about in your mock analysis. So there are 150 questions and you have 2 hours. Now the question is, how first of all you take a trial mock. You see how many do you usually attempt, how fast is your reading speed, what is the range of questions in which you can what is the range of questions which you can attempt throughout the entire mock. On the basis of that trial mock, I can communicate with you and say, okay, you know what, it looks like this section is your weakness, it looks like this section is your strength, and maybe that's something we can work on. On the basis of how your trial mock goes, somehow you get a score of 75, somehow you get a score of 80. On the basis of that, we look at your sectional distribution. So some sections are generally stronger than others, and this differs from people to people. But someone who's prepared GK a lot will do great in GK, and someone who's not very comfortable with CR won't do as well in CR. And there are specific ways to address each section. Broadly, I treat verbals as a single category, but on the basis of your trial mock, what we'll do is first we'll decide number one, and this is very important, in which order do you attempt the paper. Now, this is very individual and it changes from people to people. But the best way you can do this is not just by blindly following whatever order comes to you or by jumbling up the order, because that can be very fatal in the final paper. There have been instances when someone's not sure or when someone switched up the order when they shouldn't have. And what that's done is that, it's caused them to go in a state of panic and they haven't attempted many questions. And at the end of the day, you're not going to do well. So, first, you have to decide the order that you're using. So that's where I come in. First, you take the trial mock. You look at how strong each of your sections are, how good your reading speed. is, and on that basis we go ahead and decide which one you're going to attend first and which one you're going to attend later. Now the strategy that I followed, and again I'm saying that I'm telling you guys again that this is not uniform, this is not universal, that everyone can follow the same strategy. Mine was to take the paper as is, and I found for me that this was the most comfortable strategy, that I was able to get the highest number of attempts in this. And when I say I took the paper as is, I took pehle English, then I took GK, then I took legal, then I took CR, and then I took quants. Now, I was most comfortable with this strategy. I had already prepared with it, but I had friends who had very different strategies and it worked very well for them. So, one of my study buddies who also made it in NLS, she had the strategy of switching in between a lot. First, she'd take a verbal section, then she'd go back to math, and then she'd go to GK, and then she'd go to another verbal section, and then she'd go back to math. Now, for me personally, that wouldn't work. I tried something like that, and it failed because, well, I couldn't handle so many sections at once. I had to focus on one section at a time. So, like I said, it's very individual. We can find out over the course of mentorship sessions where, firstly, usually my mentorship session lasts for about 45 minutes to 1 hour, and in that session I will ask you pehle to tell you what exactly are you facing, what are your problems, what is the way that you're approaching things. Only then can I give you some advice, because if you go to other YouTube videos and you go to other coaching institutes, they'll advise taking it for about 1 hour, but the problem is that advice is not specifically tailored to your problems. So if you want advice tailored to your problems, that's where mentorship is most effective. And the way that NLTI works is that we have like around a 1 to 16 ratio. That means there's one mentor for 16 students, and I take 8 students at a time. So if I'm taking 8 students for 45 minutes, I'm able to dedicate more than enough time for all your specific concerns. And I know this works because my batch, my mentors that I had for CLAT 2023, they progressed throughout. And when I say that, I mean I mentored them for about 3-4 months, and there was a substantial improvement in the scores from where they began. I mentored 18 students in total, and 6 of them have made it in tier 1 NLUs. So that's something to say that mentorship actually works. Mentorship is where you start off. So digressing from that a little bit, now we'll get back to what we were initially addressing, that is mock analysis strategy. So first, once you figured out your order, once you're comfortable with it, once you've been taking 2 mocks a week, now we get to the analysis part. After I take a mock, how exactly do I analyze the mock most effectively so that agle mock mein I can get a better score than this, that I can correct my mistakes, that I don't end up making the same mistakes that I make. Now for this, what I usually recommend is something called blind review. Now, blind review is a strategy that I learned from LSAT. It's a form of analyzing a paper that basically makes you go through parts of the paper again. And when you go through parts of the paper again, that logic solidifies in your head. So what blind review is somehow that I get question number 81 and 85 wrong. Now I only check my answer key and I see, okay, I've got question number 81 and 85 wrong, but I don't check the correct answer right away. All I know is that I've got that particular question wrong. So what I do after that is I will go into I will just go through all the correct questions that I've got. So somehow we have an RC section. RC section is question 1 from question 30 usually. So somehow I got 23 and 25 wrong. I just know that I got number 23 and number 25 wrong. And now I'm going to see the correct answer. I'm not going to see the correct answers for those wrong questions. But now I'm going to go through each and every one of my answers, even the ones that were correct. That means my analysis will be going through question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the idea when you go through these questions is not just to read the explanation. I generally don't rely on the explanation at all. I don't believe, that the coaching institutes ka jo explanation dete hai, that it's really effective in helping your logical skill. I think when you get an answer correct, what you should do is repeat or remind yourself of what went through your head when you marked that question. To remind yourself that, theek hai, I I had this logical process in my head, and this logical process has led me to this answer, made made me get this question correct. So what that does is every time you go through a correct question, it's basically reinforcing a process. It's basically reinforcing that this is the logic that has to be followed because I've got this question correct. That's why I recommend going through each and every correct question as well and reminding yourself what was the logic for marking this question. Now, coming to the wrong questions, like I said, if I'm analyzing question 1 to question 30 in the RC section, coming to the wrong questions, let's say I got 23 and number 25 wrong, I'm not going to check the correct answer. But what I am going to do is I'm going to go through all the options again. So I'll tell you what the effect of that is. First of all, I already remember the one that I've marked. And because I've marked that, I got it wrong. So now I know that one is definitely not the answer. There are three other options left. CLAT has A, B, C, D. Somehow I marked D and D turns out to be the wrong one. I don't see the correct answer, but now I ask myself, okay, among A, B, and C, which can be the correct answer? So there are two things that happen here. Firstly, what happens is you tell yourself, you remind yourself of the logic that went through your head when you mark this wrong question. And because you do that, your brain tells you that, okay, because I got this wrong and this is a logic that went through my head, this is not the correct form of logic to be followed. So what is the correct form of logic to be followed? You find out when you mark from A, B, and C. Because what usually happens is if you check the explanation first, you end up relying on the logic of the explanation. And like I've said, a lot of times in most coaching institutes, their explanations are not logically coherent. It's best to rely on your own logical sense. And the best way you can rely on your own logical sense is by seeing, okay, between A, B, and C, which can be a correct answer if it's not D. Then once you choose something between A, B, and C, and you get that right, supposing you get that right, you ask yourself, okay, what's the logic that went through my head now? So what's the new logic that went through my head? Why is it that I got this question correct and I didn't get the previous question correct? So this is essentially this is one second, just give me a sec. Uh, anyone who has their mic on, could you please mute it? We'll have a question clearing session which you guys can give me your inputs and then we'll start. All right, thanks. Right. So yeah, I was saying that you go through A, A, B, and C without checking the correct answer, and supposing you make some logic in your head that okay, you know what, this could be the answer because of this reason, and you go through the passage again and you get it right this time. What that does is gives you two things. First is that the logic that I followed previously was wrong, and second, that the logic that I followed now was correct. Again, what that does is that it reinforces the correct logic while specifically telling your brain that the logic that you used before was incorrect. So that's why blind review is the most effective form of analysis. Now, obviously, blind review does not work for things like GK and quants. For GK, I usually recommend going through the entire passage. Once you go through the entire passage, pick out the date it's from, pick out the date that it's from, pick out the topic, and then look through, if suppose you haven't covered that topic, look through other similar topics in that date range. And when you do that, you've essentially filled in a knowledge gap, that if I didn't know this topic and this topic was on that particular date, I go back to that date and I learn all the topics. So that fills in a knowledge gap. That's what I've recommended for GK. And I always say that go through the answers again, just reread them very briefly, because that reinforces your memory as well. If you've already questioned right or if you got a question wrong, it reinforces your memory to go through the entire GK question again. Now, as for quants, I think it's very simple. It's very straightforward. Put a timer, and this could depend on how comfortable you are with quants. You can do it for about 15 minutes is something that I recommend. Take the quants section, take the entire three sets again, and time yourself for 15 to 20 minutes. And you might run out of time. That's okay. But never ever, and this is an extremely important tip, never make the mistake of taking your quant section again without timing it. Because I've said this before, that quants in CLAT is not about whether or not you can get the question right. It's not about accuracy. Quants is about speed, because more often than not, the quants questions are fairly simple. They're easy to solve. The question is whether you can solve them in the given time period. If they're difficult, that's also another question. That's also a conceptual issue that that we address in mentorship sessions that are specific to that particular section. If we have a session on quants, maybe we go through concepts, but what is important for quants is timing. So if you're analyzing quants, keep a 15 to 20-minute timer, somewhere in that range, not more than that, and analyze the quant section in its entirety. Coming back to the reading sections, the process of blind review has to be followed for each and every one of them: RC, legal, and CR. Now, this is the way that we analyze mocks. And mock analysis for the verbal sections is more or less the same, because I've always believed that English, CR, and legal are mere restatements of each of the other sections. I don't believe that they're very substantially different. If you see a large difference in your score of, let's say, English and in the score of logical. That's probably a mock specific issue. And I've seen this because I had a lot of students who I used to mentor. They said, "But I'm getting English में अच्छा मिल रहा है. I'm getting 25. I'm getting 27. For logical में I'm getting 18. I'm getting 17." So, and what happened is in CLAT, more or less they got a pretty good score in logic and they did equally well in RC as well. So I believe that verbal skills are usually transferable between RC and between legal, sorry, between RC and between CR. And if you approach the paper, and this is again, I've seen this. This is my experience. If you approach the paper with a mindset that hey, I have a weakness and my weakness is in legal, then what will happen is that you'll approach that section with such nervousness that you're almost bound to not do well in that section. And I've seen this with one of the students that I used to mentor. It was a very sad story, but what happened, you don't want to walk in the paper with a mental block that this I'm definitely going to not do well in this section. So this is mostly for mock analysis and the process of blind review. Now we'll take more questions about how do you analyze mocks and blind review, and even in general if you have any queries about NLTI, about mentorship, we'll take it. But let me just brief you on how mentorship works. So if you enroll for the 1 year course, what happens is for the first 3 months, for the first 3-4 months, we train you on the basics, on the concepts. You build up on the concepts of logical, build up on the concepts of quants. Quants is fairly easy to master. We have formula sheet. For legal, we have a lot of material. For RC, basically we go through how do we, so the questions that we answer and the question that a lot of students have is number one, how do we improve our reading speed? And this was a very difficult question back for my students because I was training my students in a span of 3 to 4 months. And the lucky part, the best part about this is that you guys have a year or maybe somewhat lesser, but you guys have a good amount of time enough to improve your reading speed. And you're in the right place because if you have any doubt, if you think you're going on the wrong path, or if you think you don't know where to go, that's where a mentor steps in. This is not something that coaching institutes can offer because of the just because of the sheer volume of students that they take. So, if I was enrolled in a coaching institute, and the thing is, it was not possible for a mentor to give me specific attention. And even if they gave me specific attention, it was very surface level. It was very cursory. I couldn't have a mentor sit down with me and specifically text me whenever I had a or whenever I had a session. I'd tell them about my issues for 5 minutes and why I was facing that issue. And they would create a strategy and respond specifically to that issue. So that's why mentorship steps in. So for the first 3 months, we'll be training you on the basics, just training you on the concepts of each and every section. For the next few months, we build up on these concepts. Now we focus more on strategy. That is, how exactly do you order your paper? Are you analyzing your mocks well? Now we focus on improving your mocks. And towards the end, at the very last, the second stage is the largest chunk of mentorship. At the very last stage, we focus on psychology. And towards the end, this is very important, I think, because my students, when just before they took the paper, we had about 2 sessions. Just for 1 hour, we sat and talked about why CLAT makes them nervous and how exactly it is that you can overcome this nervousness. Because I have seen students with excellent mock scores, who had, let's say, 110, 120 k upper. And when it came to the final paper, they got so nervous that they ended up not even getting close to 50 or 60. And this happens because you walk in with this feeling that okay, I've taken so many mocks and done my conceptual I've done my conceptual problems. It must be easy for me to get the same score that I'm getting in mocks. But that's not the case. Every mentor will tell you this, and I'm reiterating this, that mocks and CLAT are not the same. Mocks can be a reflection of how well you do in the skills that CLAT tests. But that doesn't mean that whatever score you're getting in mocks, you will get in CLAT. Don't make the mistake of thinking that. So for that reason, what we specifically do is we address the psychology. And a calm student, a student who is scoring even, let's say, 80 or 90 in the last stage of their preparation, can very well score 100 or 110 plus if they have the right state of mind during the paper. And that right state of mind is something that's hard to master. And this is not something that coaching institutes will tell you. And the reason being is that how is a coaching institute going to tell you how do you address your own nervousness? How do you address your emotions? How do you address the particular situation you are in with regards to CLAT? Because to a coaching institute, you are merely a number. You're a statistic. But the reason that mentorship is different is that to me, you're a person. I still keep in touch with a lot of my students who got an NLUs, who didn't even get an NLUs, and there's a sort, there's sort of a the sort of a thing that I look out for them, and I can do that because I can interact with them on a weekly basis, and they can text me at any time that they want. So I think this part really helps in reinforcing you psychologically. You know that despite all your preparation, and even I've faced a lot of nervousness, even I've almost broken down before CLAD. Despite the nervousness, despite the lack of sleep, I still pull through. So I know what it means to be nervous, and I know how we overcome the nervousness, how we take CLAT with a calm state of mind. So I think the third part of the preparation, like I said, I emphasize is mostly psychological. Now, what I'll do is we've discussed mock analysis, we've discussed general mentorship and how the process of mentorship throughout the year. I will open the floor to you guys and jo bhi bolna hai, maybe even about your mentorship, even about your preparation, just any, even if it's a conceptual doubt, I'll be more than willing to clarify it. So you guys can go ahead and ask questions.
Excuse me, sir, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Good evening, sir.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my question was a little different from CLAT because I gave CLAT in 2022 December, and there was something happened and I wasn't able to clear it. So right now, more than CLAT 24, I'm aiming on other law entrances like SLAT and MHSET. So could you just brief me a little on what my preparation should be different from what I did for CLAT in comparison to when I go ahead for SLAT and MHSET?
Okay, so this is firstly, you don't have to call me sir. You can just call me Prem. It's more than enough. I'm mostly I'm mostly your age, maybe 1 or 2 years older than you. So just call me Prem. And secondly, okay, this is a question that's not specific to that because you want to prepare for other entrance exams. So let me just get an idea of the entrance exams that you're looking at. You said SLAT, you said MHCT. What other entrance exam are you looking at?
Majorly, it's going to be both of them only, to be honest. SLAT, MHSET, and to be honest, yeah.
Okay, okay, sure. So NLTI has a mentorship that's specifically tailored for CLAT and that's specifically tailored for other law entrance exams as well. Now, I specialize in LSAT. I topped the LSAT back when I was taking entrance exams. There are mentors in the OLET students group, the other law entrance exams students group, which you can enroll in. You can talk to Anish about it, but they deal with SLAT and MHCT specific questions. But to answer your question about how should your preparation should be different, I think it's different in that, as far as my understanding goes, a lot of SLAT and MHCT pattern is somewhat like the ALET old pattern in that they have individual logical questions. They have things like analytical reasoning sets. So for those, unlike CLAT is just a passage based thing in which you can take sectionals and you can take mocks, you can improve at. Or some people don't even have to take sectionals to be good at those passages. But for the questions that are specific to SLAT and MHCET, usually we buy books by let's say I think S. Agarwal, and there are a lot of other resource material that I think the SLAT mentors and the MHCET mentors would have access to. I don't know about the specific questions because, like I said, I've never taken SLAT and MHCET, but I have an idea of how these work by virtue of having taken ALET as well and having known their pattern. So ideally, your preparation would not be very verbal centric. It would be very, solving the pattern of questions that have appeared before. And just one tip, I think this applies, universally for every law entrance exam, including CLAT, is that the previous year question papers should be your Bible. By that, I mean that you should analyze thoroughly what are the types of questions that came in the previous year papers. Obviously, the paper that came in the last, like, let's say just the year before, is most important, but even the papers that came before that is important. What this tells you is that it gives you an idea of the types of questions that are going to come, and accordingly you take a note of those types of questions and you look up resources online, or even NLA offers these resources as well. You look up these resources, you find these resources, and you prepare specifically for them. For GK, I don't think your preparation is vastly different. It is mostly the same for every entrance exam. For quants as well, I think it is mostly the same for every entrance exam, except in CLAT. Generally, we don't learn things like time and work or time, speed and distance or algebra, but or maybe even compound interest. But for other entrance exams who have standalone math questions, they do have to learn these obscure topics like mentioned. Go back to your 10th grade textbook, like time and work. There's a lot of YouTube channels. There's a lot of resources out there that I've recommended to my students. So for quants, your preparation will change up a little bit. For logical, is going to be entirely different because it's not going to be like English reason. It's not going to be like English. It's not going to be like RC. It's going to be, like I said, a lot of analytical reasoning questions, conclusion, assumptions, puzzle sets. A lot of these, there are R.S. Agarwal. I think there are a couple more authors that I'm not getting off the top of my head. I'm sure the mentors have access to these resources. But for English, your preparation will be more vocabulary centric. So unlike in CLAT, where at max you have one vocabulary question per section, in the other entrance exams you'll have a lot of grammar based questions. You'll have a lot of vocabulary based questions. So for that you use different resources. You use things like Word Power Made Easy is a book which I use. Ren and Martin for grammar, and Ren and Martin for grammar. And so, but at the same time, you also polish your verbal skills because there are passages as well. It's not like the other entrance exams don't have passages. So broadly, section wise, this is how you approach each of these entrance exams differently.
Thank you so much.
No issues. Okay. Anyone else? You can drop your question in the chat also if you don't want to unmute yourself. You're more than free to unmute yourself as well. So there's a question in the chat. What should be the strategy for droppers? What study material should they refer to? What should they read and practice? Okay. So for droppers, there is one advantage in the sense that you have already taken CLAT. You know how the system works. You know the types of resources to look out for. You don't have to go ahead and purchase those exorbitant. I did that back in the day and I regret it now. Those 1 lakh packages, those full those 1 lakh packages, because they don't end up a lot of use. So firstly, most I think the starting step is get good test series. So there's a lot of good test series that I generally recommend. I'm not going to say the names that I recommend, but uh, get a good test series that that your mentors suggest you. Get a good set of test series that that your friends suggest to you, that are proven in quality. Don't just blindly go ahead and look at the advertisements online, because a lot of times they're misleading. Don't just blindly listen to, this might sound ironical coming from me, but don't just blindly listen to all the previous year toppers, because a lot of times it's not that they fully use the entrance exam test that they were advertising, right? So definitely first get a good test series. Second, develop a GK strategy. And I think we spent my mentees, we spent a lot of time dealing specifically with how you prepare for GK and the sources that you use. So number two, develop a good GK strategy. Find a set of sources and start taking notes. And a GK strategy deserves a whole 2 hour session in itself because of how expansive it is. But broadly, you develop a GK strategy. And number three, preferably prepare with a set of students, maybe one or two close friends who you think are as serious and as dedicated as you are to the exam. And this can happen locally. You don't have to go out looking for a study buddy. But I think peer discussion and finding people that you can work with is also a big part of mentorship. In With my students, the students that I was teaching, all India ranked 23, his name is Sanat. So he found, through the study groups that we had created, he found someone that he could study with, where they used to clarify each other's doubts. They used to help each other through their preparation. If both of them had any strategic or even conceptual doubts, they would text me or they would ask me in the sections. So find someone that you can work with and you can end up doing very well together. Personally, I had a study group of 4. All of us made it to NLS. So that's step 3. Find someone you can work with. If you can't find someone you can work with, or you think you work alone better, then go ahead and do it. A lot of students crack CLAT just working on their own as well. That's perfectly fine. But yeah, broadly, I think, and 4, start taking 2 mocks a week. I think that's very important. Once you get a good test series, don't just neglect it. Don't let it sit there. Start taking 4 mocks a week. 5, try and figure out your quants concepts, because quants, again, don't ignore quants. Quants again deserves a whole session of its own, but quants is very important because it can be a deal breaker for your final score. So try and figure out the concepts and cons which you are not very good at, because a lot of students come into CLAT saying that, Acha, I came here because I want to escape commerce or फिर से math मिल गया. But and they end up struggling and they end up just giving up on cons. I don't suggest doing that. Firstly, if you have a mentor, you find out the syllabus of cons, you look up the past year papers, you look up websites online, you find out broadly what is the CLAT syllabus for cons, and you go through each and every one of these concepts. I wanted to be extra sure of my concepts. So even though I know that CLAT usually dealt with percentages and ratios and things like that, I went the extra mile and I did time work, time speed, distance, and all. That particular concepts that we can talk about, that your mentors can help you with. But like I said, five, just start working on your cons concepts. And I think broadly, these five things, if you do them consistently throughout the year, now how you do them is a question that it requires a lot of sessions that we can't address in one session itself. But broadly, if you address these five things, I think you're good to go for your preparation. Okay, so which I want to ask that for a 12th class student, should I restart my prep now or start it after boards? I would say start your prep now, unless there are some very pressing issues that you're not able to get to your preparation for. Otherwise, I'd say just go ahead and start your prep now. It's always best to start earlier, and this is particularly important for GK, because the earlier you start with GK, the greater the advantage that you have. If you start GK late and you try to cover all the backlog with these fat compendiums, then you don't usually end up doing very well in GK. So doing GK on a daily basis, just bit by bit, following up GK 1 hour for 1 hour or 2 hours on a daily basis, it really helps. So if you don't have time for the other sections, you don't have a lot of time for mocks, at least do GK on a daily basis. Chaitanya says, what should be the strategy for LSAT, which is going to be held on 22nd of Jan, and how does one start? So I recently
Prem
took an
bhaiya,
LSAT.
sorry for
Acha,
interrupting in between. Your voice is like don't come. It's very not
acha,
clear.
एक minute. Can you guys hear me now? अभी आवाज आ रही है? Uh,
Yeah, you're
just
audible, Bhaiya.
ठीक है. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that, Kushi. अगर if my voice is cut off again, then just let me know and I'll solve it. Okay. So yeah, what should be the strategy for LSAT? Now, I recently held an introductory session on LSAT and how you go about preparing for LSAT. I think that session was for about 40-45 minutes, and it's available. It's available for free on the NLTI, OLET, other law entrance test group. So you can just check that out, in which I've talked about how do you prepare for the LSAT in detail. How do you improve CR and RC? Now, it's hard for me to go ahead and say, these are the things you do and this is exactly how you do it, because if you go and ask someone how do you improve in these sections, they will sit and they'll give you a bunch of general advice ki, haan, ye karo, wo karo. And usually that works, it is correct, but it doesn't address the root of the issue, that is ki, what are you doing wrong. And in order for me to tell you how you should improve in CR and RC, I have to listen to what your problems are and how are you approaching CR and RC, and then we can modify that. So that requires a separate mentorship session on its own, not something I can address immediately. Do you think we should give 3 to 4 marks from January if the student is a dropper? 3 to 4 marks a week. I think if my understanding goes well, CLAT 2024 is going to be in December. 3 to 4 marks a week. If you can manage that momentum, sure, but I really doubt it. So I think in the initial 4 months, 4 to 5 months of your preparation, you should be very good with your GK. Focus on GK. Focus on getting all your concepts right. Learn the concepts, practice cons on a daily basis. These two things you do broadly. And I think 2 marks a week should be sufficient for the first 3 to 4 months. As your preparation increases and the exam gets closer, then you start, using 3 to 4 marks a week. But in the beginning, I really recommend that you pin down your basic concepts rather than going for so many mocks. Okay, analyze the CLAT 2023 paper. I found that years from last July to November 2022. Is there any need to prepare for 1 year GK? So, that is a problem. Now, CLAT GK was particularly difficult. The even the topmost students didn't do very well in the GK section, and that's because GK can be unpredictable. The pattern broadly remains the same, but the type of questions that they ask can really change. So you have the advantage of starting your GK now. And I recommend that instead of waiting for a later period of time, start your GK abhi hi. And that will be around 1 year because it's already January and the CLAT is going to be in December. So that will be around 1 year, but go ahead and start it immediately. That is what I would recommend for GK. My first attempt, Yuvraj says, and I'm preparing for CLAT 2024 self-study. क्या मुझे बता सकते हैं कि मुझे किस मटेरियल सर्च करना है select. Okay, so like I answered in a previous question, I think Saurav asked me, what should be your strategy to prepare for CLAT 2024. I said, pehle to just buy a test series. I think without test series, you cannot make do. So coaching books are definitely helpful in that they will clarify your concepts, and if you have any conceptual issues, that you can keep practicing the same questions from the study material. But to me, mocks are most important. Personally, I didn't go through a lot of study material in the last 7 to 8 months of my preparation because I prepared for a year and a half. So initially, I did look into a lot of study material that was good for my concept base, but after that, I stopped looking at study material altogether. My only source of preparation was mocks. So that's what I'll say about that. Um, is a second partial drop worth NLS? So if you can afford a partial drop, not just financially, even energy and time wise, then I would say go for it. But in order for me to answer this question, it's a very personal question because I'd have to know the circumstance that you are in, how your first two CLAT papers went, what happened in the first two CLAT papers. So maybe it's something that we can discuss later because we're with a lot of students today. But this is a very personal question, which is why again I reiterate that mentorship tends to be important because you can't go to a coaching institute and ask these questions, and they're going to ask you about your life and they're going to ask you about what circumstance you're in. But this is a question that I would have an individual conversation with to discuss whether or not you should take a partial drop. How to approach GK? Does note making work? How do you prepare for GK? What's your score needs section? So I would say, excuse me, approach. I think for GK, like I said for point 3 when I was answering Saurav's question, is that find someone to work with. Find someone to work with specifically for GK notes. I think this is very important because there's a lot of GA, there's a lot of current affairs that you have to catch up on a daily basis. So if you have someone to work with and you both can share your notes, you both can create notes on a common platform. Now, what I did is with my study group of 4, there's a certain platform called Evernote, Evernote. What we did is we created an account on Evernote and we added all our current affairs material there. Now, how you go about organizing it, how do you distribute the current affairs load, what sources you take, that's all for another dedicated GK section. But generally, yes, I do recommend definitely making notes. And towards the last, 1.5 or 2 months of your preparation, you begin revising these notes and you begin going through them. My score, particularly in GK, was 23.5 in CLAT 2022. Okay, so what's the proper way for current affairs on a daily basis? It took me about 3 to 4 hours of mine to make deep notes, taking a lot of time. I think I already answered this question when I was answering Saurav's question. Like I said, find someone to work with. I know that making notes is a very hectic task. And it's also important to prioritize what type of notes are you taking. Are you just taking topics as they come, or are you sorting these topics on the basis of how relevant each topic is? And what type of notes are you taking? Are you writing down paragraphs? Are you making to the point? Are you making bullet points? How are you organizing this information? There's a template that I created. There's a sort of, I think there are pictures of my notes back when I was creating GK notes. There are pictures of the way that I organize my information and I created it. So maybe you can ask Anish and you can go through that to get an idea of how do you prepare your notes. But preparing your notes should not take 3 to 4 hours. And if you find people to work with and you distribute your workload, it can take even 1 to 1.5 hours. Okay, I'm facing a problem like when I read legal and English passages, even though I can understand them, um, even though I can read them fast, I'm unable to understand. When I go through questions, I read the passage again, so it's taking a lot of time. What should I do? Okay, so this is a question of how do you approach reading passages in CLAT. Now, usually we would do this on for an RC specific section, but I will briefly go over this question now because it's a problem that a lot of people face. This is an issue of comprehension. It's not just reading speed, it's also that if you try to read so fast, your comprehension suffers. So, number one, I recommend bring down your reading speed. I understand that you want to go through the paper as fast as possible, but if you don't comprehend the passage itself, then it's going to be difficult for you to answer the question. So, first, I would say be a little slower. That's one. In the beginning you can become slower, and later we can build on how you can improve your reading speed, but first start out slower in reading the passage. And second, keep in mind that it's perfectly normal, it is perfectly okay to refer back to the passage when you're answering the questions. This is the strategy that I recommended to my students, that when you're doing a reading passage, you should take about 45 minutes once to 1 minute 45 seconds, 45 seconds to 1 minute to maybe 1 minute and 20 seconds to read the passage. And when I say read the passage, this one is usually going to be skimming. In this part of the reading, you get a broad understanding of what the passage is about. You get a broad understanding of the structure of the passage, of the general idea, of the central idea. And then when you're referring back to specific questions, uh, you can go ahead and refer back to the passage. It's perfectly normal to refer back to the passage. Don't hesitate in doing that. How to manage CLAT prep with science in 12th? What's a sufficient amount of time to give? So I won't say that there's a straight jacket way of saying, give 5 hours a day every day for CLAT and you'll definitely crack it. I will say that you should set tasks for yourself every day. That today I'm going to finish this, tomorrow I'm going to finish that. And whether or not those tasks are enough depends on where you are in your preparation. And that's something that your mentor can help you with. Maybe you're better at one section than the other. And accordingly, you can set your goals and you can set your tasks on a daily basis. But it is perfectly possible to manage CLAT prep with science. You have to compartmentalize your, and by saying compartmentalize, I mean separate the two, allocate specific times of the day for each. So maybe in the mornings you do science, if you wake up, maybe in the evenings you do CLAT, but compartmentalize your study. And to answer the sufficient amount of time, no, there's no such time limit per se. You have to set tasks, you figure out what tasks you set and follow them on a daily basis. Does NLTI provide mock tests in their mentorship package? Yes, we do. As far as I'm aware, I think there are 50 or 50 plus mock tests in our mentorship package. For more details, you can ask Anish. All the mock tests are created by NLS students themselves. So you know that we have faced a lot of issues with drafting. When we used to take coaching institutes mocks, their drafting used to be very poor and we used to suffer because of their drafting. So generally NLS students know better how exactly you draft these sections, and in my experience they tend to be of better quality. uh, what do you suggest for improving CR? So this is a very broad question that's CR specific, and I will say that there's no straight jacket way to answer this. For this, I would have to delve into a whole CR session itself. But for that, I would have to know what issues are you facing in CR. Maybe you can address it strategically. But for a book, I think solving sectional tests are more than enough. If I'm correct, NLTI is going to offer sectional tests. Other coaching institutes offer sectional tests. So for CR, look into sectional tests, and it depends on what type of CR we're talking about also, right? If you're looking at CLAT CR, then you can just solve RC, because both RC and CR tend to be very similar. But if you're looking at things like ALET CR, or if you're looking at SLAT CR, then those things are very different and they require you to pick up very different books. Okay, is a single drop worth it? I prepared well. I knew mistakes. I started preparing for 11th. A single drop, again, I think generally a single drop is worth it. But again, I would have to exactly know where you are in your preparation in order for me to tell you that. And I would have to know what mistakes you made in CLAT. I'd have to know how was your first CLAT. I'd have to know what kind of time do you have on your hands, what kind of resources do you have. So this is mostly a personal conversation, but a lot of students I know in NLS have made it through a drop year as well. So generally a single drop can be worth it, but it is difficult because you have to commit yourself to CLAT for an entire year. Sejal, thank you for that very much. That's amazing. I'm glad. I hope that I can mentor you. I have a uh, I have a problem this time. I gave CLAT mocks. I was scoring 710, scored 118 on the day I scored was just 40. Please suggest something for this year. Okay, if you were scoring in that range, I think it's excellent. And I already said before, there are who a lot of students who do very well in their mocks don't end up doing well in the final paper. And I think that's primarily that's why my mentorship also focuses on psychology. How exactly do you deal with the nervousness of the paper? And I'd have to know the exact mistakes you made as well so we can correct that. But I assume that you're taking a drop this year, and if you are taking a drop, then firstly I would focus. You look like you have your conceptual issues sorted, because if you're getting a score of 110 plus, then it's probably that you have your concepts grounded well. You've taken a lot of mocks and you've done your GK. So I think your preparation should focus primarily on psychology. In that you ask yourself what went wrong on that particular day, what went wrong in the 2 hours that I was taking the exam, what did I do differently than I do in those mocks. So what exactly those things are is something that I would have to hear from you, and we can go back and forth about that. But this is something that I think you should look into. That is a psychological part of your preparation. How many sections should we read on a daily basis? I'm not sure what you mean by sections. Do you mean sectional tests or do you mean GK? If you can just clarify that, I'll answer it. How do you approach quants for a paper like CLAT 2023? I think I answered this in a previous question when I was answering Saurav. I said that Pele, you have your concept sorted, figure out the CLAT syllabus, ask your mentors, go ahead and look online, go ahead and check what exactly is the CLAT syllabus. Once you figure out the CLAT syllabus, start working on the concepts. Broadly, the very basics you should definitely know are percentages and ratios. And this is mostly 8th grade, 10th grade things. A lot of people know percentages and ratios. So you start with figuring out your concepts. You pick up certain books. There are books which have sectional tests. There are books like R.S. Agarwal which have quant specific questions. There are banking IPO exam papers which have a lot of quant sections. So you pick them up and you practice. So for quants, the best way to improve is practice, practice, and practice. That's something that you can work on. Can we opt for personal mentorship from you, Ananya? That's very sweet. But you can ask Anish. I think if you can ask Anish, then I can surely be your mentor. That's perfectly possible. You can get allotted to my study group. Um, how much time should be invested in reading a newspaper? In reading newspaper each day, I would say that reading a newspaper is not about time. It's not that say, okay, I read a newspaper for 1 ghanta today, so I'm done with my GK. ऐसा नहीं होता है. I think if you're doing a newspaper, you should prioritize the important articles. And how do you prioritize important articles is something that we learn in GK sessions. But how much time should be invested in the newspaper? Generally, if your reading is good, you end up taking 30 to 40 or maybe 45 minutes. I don't read every op-ed. Some online coaching institutes will tell you that, newspaper le or op-ed padhte jao. I don't think that's a good strategy. It can be a waste of time as well. But generally, you prioritize important information for GK. You read op-eds to improve your verbal skills and your reading skills. And it shouldn't take you longer than 40-45 minutes. So how many sections should you read on a daily basis? This really depends on how the student prepares. So I know some students who will do all 5 sections in a day. They will do bit by bit. Let's say 1 ghanta, 1 ghanta for each. I know some students who will do only GK on Monday, who will do only logical reasoning on Tuesday. It really depends on how strong are you in each section, how much have you prepared already, and it depends on how comfortable you are with how much time you have. So that's a very specific question that I'd have to know your circumstances to answer. Yeah, Ananya, you can just drop Anisha text. Suraj, I think I already answered a question about a second partial drop, but just to reiterate broadly, I think if you want to take a second partial drop, I'd have to know about your circumstances, what mistakes you made in your paper before, and what your scores were. So it really depends, but if you have the resources, mental, financial, and emotional, to go ahead and take a second partial drop, then you can go ahead and do it. You can't find Anish's username. Okay, Anish's account is the NLTI account, the main account. I think the NLTI account is on this group. I'll just go ahead and tag him if you're not able to find him. Yeah, right. There it is. It's put it in the group. Okay, so we're going to end in about, let's say, about 10 minutes. We've had a session for about an hour now, but I think a last few pointers that I want to cover is, I know you guys are here for a demo mentorship session to check out, how exactly do you go out for your preparation. So, and obviously, I'd like to let you guys have the best prep that you can. So I think there are reasons that NLTI specifically can help you more than other institutions can. First is because of NLTI's mentorship model. I believe personally that NLTI's mentorship model is unique in that, number one, we're all NLS students. So we know the struggles that it takes to get through CLAT, and we've done better in it than a lot of people have. So that's number one. And number two is that like I said before, our mentorship is very personal. We have to know the circumstances of each student. We have to know what each student's weaknesses are, how each student takes the paper, and we're emotionally invested in our students as well. At least that's the way that I approach my mentorship. So I think that's why NLT is particularly unique with regards to its mentorship model. And um, I would say that there is and I've said this before, maybe some students joined late, but I'll just reiterate again. I do wholeheartedly believe that there is a formula to crack CLAT. That there's a broad strategy that if you sit down and work on, that you can definitely crack CLAT. So for this broad strategy, I'll tell you how, because I said this before. I prepared with a study group of 4 people. So the 5 of us have all made it into NLS. That means that there's something that we did in our preparation that got us into NLS. It's not that all 5 of us got in coincidentally. And the last mentorship group that I had, 6 of the 18 students made it in tier 1 colleges. They made it in NALSAR, made it in NUJS, made it in NLS, made it in NLUD as well. So I'll answer Sveksha's question before I proceed. You made mistakes, had too much on GK, quantity, quality. Okay, so looking at these circumstances of yours, I think like was already in the case of a previous question in which someone was getting more than 110 and they ended up getting somewhere in the 40s. I think this is a question of psychology, not just about how good your preparation is. So I think the psychological part of your preparation can help to solidify a good sequence, because you said that a bad sequence made you panic and you couldn't attempt the paper well. So I will say, if you are really committed to this, looking at your circumstances, that in the long run, you can go ahead and take a single drop. But again, don't just take this decision immediately. Talk to your parents, talk to your mentors, and think about it. Think about what it entails, not just the financial cost that it entails, but also the mental cost that it entails, and whether or not you're willing to commit yourself for the next 1 year. Because if your mock scores are that much, then 1 year is more than enough to improve and make it a tier 1 NLU. So that's what I'd have to say about that. Hi, today in the NLTI group, a main link was given through which we can enroll in 3 separate mock test series. Please put a link in the same group for the 1 year package. And yeah, Anish has sent that link across. Okay. Anshu, the sequence to attempt mock, I've already answered this before, that I'd have to know, पहले तो you attempt a trial mock, see कि ठीक है, I've tried to attempt 150 questions, मेरे कितने attempt हुए, and which section was better than the other section, and उसके basis पर you go ahead and follow a sequence, and for that I'd have to know what is the specific mock scores that you have, and how many mocks have you taken, and what are your sectional scores. But there's one thing that I will say I haven't said before about sequence, is that use GK very carefully. Use GK as a break. So in the middle, when you have verbal sections ke beech mein, if you use GK, that helps your mind a break from taking the next verbal sections. Because there are people who took English and legal one after the other. And the consequence of that is pehle to 30 questions reading ka hai, and immediately after that legal ka 40 questions hai. And both of these are very reading heavy questions. So what I did was English or legal ke beech mein I had GK ke 30 questions, and GK ka takes about if you do it well it takes 6 to 8 minutes to solve. And that 6 to 8 minutes you're not reading anything much. Most of GK solving is just remembering. So in those 6 to 8 minutes it basically offers your mind a break from doing the next reading section. And I generally recommend to keep quants last. That's the way that my quants has been. A lot of others are also because I was particularly weak in quants, I kept quants last. Maybe you're better at quants, or maybe you approach quants differently, so that can change depending on your particular circumstances. But just keep in mind that you can use GK carefully, put it in your sequence such that it gives you a break from reading sections. That's one thing that I will say. And before we wrap up, guys, I just want to say that I think the reason that you guys should, I think you guys can seriously consider NLTI as an option is basically because of number one, a good mentorship ratio that we have. So if you join, you will most likely, not most likely, sorry, you will 100% be put in a study group. You'll be coupled with like-minded people who have similar scores such as you, on the basis of which you can form a study group. So that peer discussion aspect is there, which I think is very important if you're preparing. Your mentor is going to be an NLS mentor who is going to be looking at your preparation for the entirety of the year. If you ever have any doubt, they're available on Telegram. I get a notification and I solve your doubt immediately. Whether it's a strategic doubt, what GK section, or what sources to use for GK, or how exactly, or if you have a specific doubt, you can just take a screenshot of that question and send it to me. I'll explain the logic of that section. So you guys have the early bird advantage. You have the advantage of having about a year for CLAT. And NLTI's package also tells you how exactly you master the basics as well. So if you start now, I think you guys can have an advantage. And NLTI also offers a lot of access to material. So we don't take a one size fits all approach in that we'll do it only from one coaching institute, but within the NLTI package, particularly for the LSAT package as well, there's a ton of material that you can access that, even if you use for 6-7 months, it's going to last. You can finish all the material in that while. So not only does the package offer mentorship, it offers material as well. So that's something that you guys can look into. If you guys are interested, you can go ahead and contact Anish or Anish_1507, or you can go ahead and contact the National Law Training Institute ID, which is the admin of this group. You can just drop a text message. Lastly, I think I'll take one last question before I end. Can you please share your experience when you're dealing with those tough questions of English and GK as well as the lengthy legal section? What was going through your mind? Did you also panic during your CLAT exam? Firstly, I'll answer the question of panic. Yes, I panicked during my CLAT exam. Now the question is whether or not I dealt with that panic well, and did I let that panic overcome my score? That I did not. And the way that I dealt with that panic is again something that was a sort of mindset preparation that came a lot before CLAT. That's something that we can talk about in our psychological sessions where we discuss the psychology of taking the CLAT paper. But yes, I panicked during the CLAT exam. What was going through my mind was, for me, I panicked because legal was very long for me. What ended up happening is I usually spend 35 to 40 minutes for legal, but I ended up spending 45 to 50 minutes. So what I did is I balanced it with other sections. For me, English was not difficult because I think English was not tough per se for CLAT 2020, but it was tough in the sense that it was lengthy. But for me, I had already had my reading speed pinned down, and reading speed is something that we will look into specifically in the RC sections. And you guys have a year to improve your reading speed, so we will look into the reading speed and how
हाँ
do you improve your reading speed. So English was not
अरे
very tough for
फैमिली
me.
लॉ हु डन यार
I think someone on
हेलो
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
हाय प्रेम am I audible
yeah. Anish, I'll just finish answering this question. You can go ahead.
yeah cool okay
And lastly, for GK, I already mentioned that it was more of a peer discussion format in which I took notes with my study buddies. You can pick on the if you do end up taking mentorship, then we can discuss how exactly you formulate a GK strategy specifically for CLAT. Anish, you were saying something? Go ahead.
No, I was just here to wrap up the session. Thank you, Prem. Is there any last thing? There's one question. So, if you could take out time, should I enroll now or after my board? So, but yeah, if you have any comments, if they should enroll just now or after they are done. My personal view is that they should enroll now so that we can guide them how to prepare for CLAT alongside their boards, and that would also give them an edge over others who do not just prepare for CLAT at all. So, what are your views on this? And we'll end with this question.
Right. So I think the reason that I also think the same thing that you can join now, and the reason I think that is because pehle to the first 4 months that we're going to spend on mentorship is mastering the basic concepts. So it's not going to be very time intensive as it is going to be in the later part of your preparation. So even if you do have boards back then, I think managing boards side by side is very possible. And secondly, we already saw that GK came from more than 1 year ago in CLAT 2023. So if GK does come from such a time period and you delay your preparation to a later stage and you don't know what GK strategy to use, how exactly do you go for GK, then your GK might suffer. So I do recommend that you adopt it now because it's not going to be as time intensive as it would be. It's going to help you to balance your studies. It's going to get some structure in your study, and it's going to help you with your GK as well.
Right. Okay, Prem, thank you so much for joining in and taking out time. I hope it was a wonderful session for everyone and also gives a sneak peek into what NLTI mentorship plan entails. Thank you, Prem. You can leave the session now. I'll take up last few doubts if they have any.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, guys, I'm not taking any academic doubt here. If you have any doubt regarding NLTI or the program that we offer, please feel free to ask. One doubt I say is NLTI mocks are offline or online. So the mocks are online, but we will give you PDF so you can print out the mocks and you can punch in the answers online on our online portal. So a mix of both. You can obviously print and give the mock. Any more doubts? So you must have heard Prem telling you what NLTI program entails and how it will be helpful for you for a CLAT preparation. And also, you must have seen the brilliant CLAT and ALET result that we had in this year. So that is also one thing.
What facilities will provided under the mentorship?
You can see the our brochure there. Everything is mentioned. What all will be given to you. It will you will have a personal NLS mentor, and you will have study buddies. You'll have study material. You'll have mock tests. You'll have uh, the test series. Of course, you'll have 50 mock tests and 50 sectional tests. You will be given the personal mentor who will be taking daily doubts via Telegram chat and a weekly doubt clearing session, just like we had with Prem right now. So that is our primary USP of NLS thing. Like, can you please elaborate the NLTI Super 30 program? That is Kushi, that is not presently in under working. So that we will launch around July, August when people are well versed with the CLAT exam, and then we also have we monitor their mock scores and then we add them into the program. Hi, am I audible? I'm sorry. Guys, any more doubts that you have? I'll close the session otherwise.
You also provide the study materials.
The study material will not be directly in the form, but we will be recommending you what all to study, and we will also give you source where you can access that study material for free. So yeah, but we will not be providing any material that we make on our own. That is just mock tests.
Yeah. Basically, you have a package of mock test, mentoring session, doubt clearing session for the
Yeah,
entire membership.
right.
Okay.
You guys are not teaching something like that. Only
The
mentoring, matlab.
the mentor will take special sessions where they will teach also. So your mentor will teach you how to read a newspaper, how to read a magazine, how to read a newspaper, how to read a newspaper article, how to read a newspaper article.
How can I enroll for your mentorship?
I'm sorry I cut. Yeah, I dropped out. So if you have any particular topic in legal or in CR, how assumptions work, conclusion, inference, they'll be teaching you that. Obviously, QT they will teach you. Maths is something that they can obviously teach you. Uh, and what? Yeah. So they'll teach you literary devices. They'll teach you tones. They'll teach you vocab. So all these things would be covered in the session.
Is it in the audio form or video form?
Both. So it's
How
up
do you
to the
enroll?
mentor, whatever form they want to take up this in. Yeah.
Sir, how can I enroll in your mentorship?
You can text me on my username ID. My username ID is Anish_1507, and you can scroll up and you can see our plan. So you can enroll using that link. I am tagging the link.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you can see this now. Any more doubts that you might have regarding NLTI? Mentorship session would be how many hours per day? It would not be per day, it would be per week. So the mentor will take around 1.5 hour, 2 hour session per week and not per day. Per day, if you have any doubts, you can ask them on Telegram chat and they'll respond to you within a very short, reasonable time period. They will clear legal topics. If you have any particular topic like how to go about IPC, how to go about uh, POXO, how to go about defamation, then they'll take up. But there's no like teaching like the proper coaching institutes teach. That is not done in NLTI.
Thank you for your help. You can close now.
Okay, thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining in. Uday, why are you here, bro? You want to join NLTI? Huh?
Yes.
Okay, special discount for you, huh? Chalo, cool. Bye bye. See you. While filling up the form, will I have to write 10,000 the box? Yeah, Kushal, yes, you have to write 10,000 in the box of amount paid so that it's easier to keep a track of the amount. Also, just to give you a hint, our website is under construction and it will be live tomorrow or day after. So it is a very good portal, education portal that we have developed, and it is comparable to LE and CL standards. So the mocks will be conducted online there with live leaderboard and everything. So that is something I want to tell you about. All right, guys, I'll close the session now. Thank you for joining in.